after looking into how they grade things, sadly, they don't round up for you point-wise. So if you get a P and you don't get a P somewhere else, heck, you might as well should have gotten an I, because you're at a half a point. They're not going to round up. Okay, so we're on to new things. We're off Z-scores. So if I had to summarize our life so far, Chapter 1, I pray you got that 5-number summary and how to make a box plot. And then I pray you got what different distributions looks like, skewed left, skewed right, normal. I hope you got a little more than that, but if at least you got that, we'll be okay. And then this past chapter, I pray you understood the empirical rule. That was the different percentages. If it's approximately normal, then within 1 standard deviation, everything's 68%. Within 2, it's 95. Within 3, it's 99.7. And then this past chapter, you also learned about Z-scores, how to go to the table, find that percentage, how to do it in your calculator. The only bad news I have to say out loud is something that, again, I'm a newbie, so you can be mad at me. Doing the best I can, just like you in life, so doing the best I can. So one thing we need to be aware of, which I didn't realize in life, I was reading a document on common errors made during a freedom swap question, and it's exactly what you and I would have done. It says, don't use calculator speak. Okay, it's okay if you write normal CDF, that's okay. But just putting normal CDF and then in parentheses a bunch of numbers, yes, everyone on earth knows what you meant. But they want you to justify that you knew the things you typed. So if you say normal CDF on my calculator, why don't you do, and Mackenzie does this, don't you? Will you actually say lower bound, upper bound?
No, I just do.
Oh, I thought we discussed it the other day. Lower bound, upper bound, mean, standard deviation. So you need to actually, and I don't care if you, Martha, I don't care if you make it less of a beautiful sentence than that. You can say normal CDF on calculator. And then I don't care if you make the list again and just label each, like this one was the lower bound, comma, upper bound. I don't care if you do that. But you have to somehow show them what each thing was. Otherwise, they're just, you can't, back to making them assuming that you know what you're doing. They don't want to make that assumption. Stupid, but a rule nonetheless. Okay, so back to what we were going to talk about today. The reason I was Googling things is because I wanted to know what people make mistakes with scatter plots, because otherwise scatter plots seem way too easy. So anyway, we're on scatter plots for now. So first 2 chapters, we focused a lot in chapter 1 on how to, with a quantitative variable, how to display it with a box plot, a histogram, that kind of thing. And that was great when there was one variable. But now that there are 2 variables, we got to use a different system. So if we have 2 variables, 2 variable data, that's what the top of our notes say. That's going to be the difference from what we were just doing and what we're doing now. From the stuff in chapter 1. Chapter 1, you had 1 variable, so you drew a block plot with the data from that 1 variable. Now we're going to have 2 variables, and we're trying to study their relationship. There are 2 different kinds of variables. One is a response variable. It measures the outcome of a study. And the response variable is very similar to what you and I would have called the dependent variable in algebra 1. Okay, Cora. My usefulness. Go on. Okay, so again, response variable is always plotted on the y-axis, and it was the dependent variable in life. And that you should have been familiar with from algebra. And then the other kind of variable is an explanatory variable, and it may help or predict changes in a response variable. Explanatory variable is always on the x, and we always called it, in algebra class, we would call it the independent variable. So basically, I need you, when you used to think of independent, in stats, we call it explanatory, because it's going to explain what's going on with the other variable. And what you used to think of as dependent, you think of as response, You make something happen and how it responds, that is the response variable. Okay, and then you're like, Ms. Compton, why are we doing this? Why do you need variables? What are we doing? What's the point? So why do we study relationships between two variables? Like, just why? And we're trying to see how the variables relate to each other. Okay, and you've actually heard a lot of this before. I think I've even said stuff like this before. Like there's probably a positive correlation between your grade in class and your score on the ACT. There's probably a positive correlation between your grade in class and the amount of hours you spend studying. There's probably a negative correlation between your grade in class and the number of hours you spend playing a video game. Like there are lots of things that we think are probably interconnected in our lives, and that's what we're trying to examine. So we've got an example, and we need to identify the explanatory and response variables below. So it says, I'm tired of reading, so I'm going to read number 1. I just can't.
I got you.
Please.
The legal limit for blood alcohol concentration for driving in all states is 0.08%. In a study, adult volunteers drank different numbers of cans of beers. 30 minutes later, a police officer measured their BAC.
Okay, so I was in college, not going to lie, and I did some psychology studies. Never in my life did they offer to just let me drink a bunch of beer and then test me out. That was never a thing, but interesting. Okay, so what is the explanatory variable? What is the response variable? The response is the blood alcohol content. The response is the blood alcohol content. So we're going to call that the response because obviously you drink a lot, and then however much of that is in your bloodstream is the response. Agreed. And then Sally thinks the different numbers of cans of beer is the explanatory variable, and that makes perfect sense. I know, right? I don't even make these. If I did, I would totally take this one out. So back to life makes natural sense. The number of beers you drink affects your blood alcohol content. You would assume that this one affects that one. So the explanatory affects the response, or kind of might determine or influences the response.
That's all you should do.
That's literally all we had to do on that one. That's all we're going to do on the next one. Okay, notice how I'm being very picky with my words. One thing we want to avoid saying, which is something we're going to get into in a few minutes when we start talking about scatter plots, I'm not going to say that the beer causes, number of beer causes my BAC to rise, my blood alcohol content to rise. Now, I know that seems stupid because you're like, but it does, Ms. Compton. The number of beers you drink, it does determine how your blood alcohol concentration rises. But you can't say the word cause in discrete. I mean, how many more minutes are left again? Jeez Louise. You can't say the word cause in stats, because when you say something causes something, it's like saying something's approximately normal. Unless you can prove it 100% without a doubt, this makes this. Don't put that word cause.
I can explain.
Or you might say influences, explains, pick anything besides the word cause. For the love, I need you to write this somewhere big on your paper. Put the giant word cause and then put an X through it. Do not let that word end up on your paper, because they take that word very seriously. And if you put that word, you better have the math to back it up. Yes, dear?
I just want you to know that someone in one of your previous classes has super dirty fingernails.
Awesome.
Ew. What?
Oh, that's
Let
great.
fingernail clippings over here.
Ew.
Terrific. That's what I always wanted. They have a test tomorrow. We'll pray they were so nervous they were biting them. I don't know. Okay, so who else likes to read? Oh, please read,
Like
Jackson.
what?
Read, Jackson. Yes, I just can't.
The National Student Loan Survey provides data on the amount of debt for recent college graduates their current income and how stressed they feel about college debt. A sociologist looks at the data with the goal of using amount of debt and income to explain the stress caused by college debt.
This one seems a little more complicated. So what's the explanatory variable? What's the response variable?
Response would be the stress, and then explanatory would be the debt. Or amount of debt.
So you think response is the stress, and you think the explanatory is the amount of debt.
Zero cause.
Yeah, so they wrote the word cause, and then they did a whole giant research study on it with a lot of data and a lot of people. So unless you're able to do the same, don't put that word. Unless you're going to poll at least, no kidding, like don't even come to me, it's got to be at least 30.
What if you have, like they say causes, why can't you say causes because they know researched it?
Oh, I understand. So if you're referencing the research, and if you said in your answer, the research said, like, debt caused stress, then you're right. No one can really be mad at you for just simply referencing the research. And y'all are super analytical about this word caused. I just thought I'd tell you not to use it and be fine. So technically, if you're referencing what someone else said, then that's okay. But in general, do I pick the word cause?
No, if it's your research poll, can you give the excuse because I said so?
If it's your research poll, sadly we're getting to polling a much later chapter. We'll have to go into, was your poll a good one? Was it fair? Was it unbiased? How did you get your people? Were they voluntary? Like, there's a lot of rules to when it comes to polling people as to whether or not you had a legit poll. So, just FYI, calling people up and leaving a voicemail wanting to know who they're voting for governor. True story as to what my voicemail was this weekend. That does not work. Well, if you smack a poll up on Twitter, you're just getting Twitter users. Is that really a good sample? Just like when they called me randomly wanting to know was I voting for Moore or
Well, if the
what's the other one's name?
Well, if the study was
Strange. Am I voting for Moore or Strange? Luther Strange. Who am I voting for? They're banking on who answers the phone. How do they know they're getting a good? They might be polling a lot of Democrats too, and Democrats aren't voting in the primary. So back to we have to get into how to conduct a good poll to get what you need from you people. Okay, yeah, he's coming back. Scatter plot. So, if we have a response and an explanatory variable, basically we have two variables and we think there's something going on between the two. We can use a scatter plot to show the relationship between two quantitative variables that is measured on the same individuals. Each individual in the data appears as a point on the graph. Explanatory variable is dotted on the x-axis and the response variable is plotted on the y. Okay, you didn't realize it, but I made you do this the other day. You already had to make your graph. You already had to put the explanatory on the x and the response on the y. You did it when you did your age guessing activity. Okay, so we're going to do exactly what you did on your age guessing activity in the example below. So in your calculator, we need to type these numbers into our list. In your calculator, we need to type these. Do you need one of these?
No.
Okay. I was confused. In your calculator, we need to type these numbers into our list. I'm going to type the points per game in L1. I'm going to type the wins into L2. Does it matter if you type them in different lists? No, but again, I'm going to make sure my explanatory is on the X and my response is on the Y. So you've got to pay attention to that. So go to, if you need a reminder, go to Stats, then go to Edit, and you need to edit the data in L1. Make sure you don't press delete at the top or it'll delete your entire list. You actually have to clean out those entries.
you try to do it by, you know how you can hover it over where it says L1, press clear and down.
Yes, that's a good way to do it. But if you press, seriously, if you press delete at the top, then suddenly that list is gone entirely. Like, goodbye list. Okay, if that happens, it's easy to fix. You go to second memory, and you can reset the calculator and just completely reset it. It might change some of your other settings, but you'll be happy to see L1 and 2 again. And they'll be clear. Yeah, but the other settings you had your calculator on. You already had it on stat plot. You already had it set to zoom stat. Like, a lot of that's going to be changed now.
Are we using the bottom box too?
Yes, so I'm doing, yeah, I did this for L1 still, and that with L2 still. Yes, good question.
Wait, I put all like the first and second box, like.
I did all the points per game in L1, and I did all the wins in L2. Because we assume the larger the amount of points, the more likely it is you won the game, but you know what happens when you assume.
No teach. I don't know what happens when you assume.
Makes an ass of you.
Mm-hmm.
She's recording.
Oh man, whoops.
Okay, again, Miss Cumden does not make these notes, although I am a big Bama fan, so of course we have the most points per game and the most wins. No, LSU has the most wins. No, they don't. LSU does in this list.
Arkansas.
Oh, Arkansas has the most points per game, but LSU has the most wins.
Let's go Vandy.
So LSU wins.
Yeah, you go to Vandy because you're smart. You don't go to Vandy for football. Although they claim they're coming for us, so I like to see this.
Well, the lowest, only
You know, I associate, I'm part of my team. Don't you understand this mentality? I am part of my team. If I could put on the shoulder pads and go run out on the field, I would, but I can't.
I don't know who the us is. So.
Alabama.
Okay.
Alabama.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so we gotta go to second plot on. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry.
I don't know what happened.
We go to plot on, and then you've got to make sure it is a scatter plot. Again, it matters who you pick for your X and Y variable. So we want our points per game to be, as our, back to, let's read the problem again.
Wait, where did you just navigate that screen? Because the calculators have confused me.
Second stat plot. Anytime we want a graph and stat, we do second stat plot. Okay. But before we go crazy and just press graph, we probably need to confirm with ourselves, like, hey, should X list really be L1 or should X list be L2? Who's supposed to be what? So we need to go back to our problem and decide, really, who was the response variable and who was the explanatory variable.
Would points per game be the explanatory?
They didn't even say, didn't they? You would think points per game is explained by the number of wins.
Yeah.
But I could also see wins are explained by the points you earn per game.
The wins is explained by the wins, yeah, it's explained by the number of points, because if you don't get your points, you can't win.
So wins then depends on points, which means the dependent was response, so wins would be response,
Yeah.
and points would be explanatory. Again, they should have used more words for this problem.
So for, what if you got like, you win like 3, you win 3, 0, and then you keep doing that, but you have a lot of wins, but the points of that are not.
Well, but you're still winning, so you still had more points than the other team to thus win. That's why Louise is arguing wins depends on points, because clearly you had the most points that game for it to be deemed a win. That's his logic, which makes sense. I can totally see how you would want to make this the other way, though. Had I wished they had used a few more sentences, absolutely. Okay, so we're going to say, since the wins is the response variable, it is going on the Y. So wins is L2, and that is going on the Y. Oh, perfect. So L1, L2, exactly like we had them. That's great. Again, am I overthinking this? Probably, but I'd rather overthink it than underthink it. Yeah, than underthink it. So we go to graph, and life might not happen exactly like you want, because, again, you have to zoom stats, which is 9. And now life is great. So why did we have to zoom stats? Because what you and I are doing, all these, the points and the number of wins, they were all positive. You don't have negative wins. You don't have negative points in this sport. So we needed only in the first quadrant. Zoom stats, zoom specifically to our data. Okay. So this looks great. And it says make a scatter plot and do this by hand. Teacher will show you the steps on the calculator. So I've showed you the steps on the calculator. And you've already practiced this, and I'm not going to make you practice it again now since we only have 12 minutes left. But if we were putting this on our paper, how could we make sure we got these points right on our paper?
Oh, trace.
Yes. So if you trace, you can see the exact points. Like they'll tell you that point right there that's blinking is 34.8 and 12. Okay. If you were to make a quick little sketch on your paper, again, we don't have to today, because Lord knows I made you practice that on Thursday or Friday. I forgot. Thursday. If you were to start making a cute little, and you did your little sketch, and this looks great, looking good. I did it real fast. It's probably real ugly. Would I be more particular if this was a real test? Absolutely. How would you get counted off right now?
If you didn't forgot to
Label your
label
axes.
the axes and the points.
Okay, so X, Y.
And,
Say what they are.
and number the things.
It would help if you put numbers down here. Gosh, I agree with that. And then I kind of like Sally's logic of at least labeling one point and saying this one is 30.48, comma 12.
Oh,
At least they know you're not crazy.
I was
Yeah,
saying
why
like
would you-
put PVG.
Yeah, why would you do that if you were to have like the both axes numbered?
All right, you don't have to, but I didn't label the axes with numbers. So since I'm being lazy and not labeling the axes with numbers because life is hard and sometimes we're in a hurry, then I would at least label one of them.
Miss Compton, I was saying to put like the points per game and the wins, like put where that is, the Y or the X.
That's what we need to do. That's what we need to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and Sally's catching me on the other part that I'm mad at. Is this sufficient?
No.
No, because this is stats class. X and Y are not going to suffice. I need you to actually label it. Is it points per games on the X or is it the wins? We decided it was what goes on the X-axis.
Points per game.
And what goes on the Y. Okay. Now, this seems silly, but we do see that they are kind of going up at the same level, so we could say there's a positive correlation, which we're going to get into that vocab in just a second. There's a positive correlation with this. And our goal, obviously not today because we're, again, running low on time in life, our goal is eventually to learn with our calculator and just with our heads. We would love to fit a line that goes through this data
Beautiful.
that would help us predict, if we played a little longer into the season, how many more points per game we need to earn in order to increase our number of wins. We're eventually going to get there. We're working on it. Life is so hard. Okay. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Okay, so it does look like there's I'm going to say positive correlation. I like that phrase. I like the phrase strong association. Basically, I like Sally to say those two things definitely go together as long as she doesn't use that C word. She cannot use the C word. Do not use causation.
Oh.
But you can say that there's a strong connection, strong association is how we put that. Or positive correlation. There's something positive going between them. It does seem like the more points I earn per game, the more wins I have for my season. However, if you put that word causation or cause, again, you don't have the numbers to back it up, so don't put that word.
It would just be wrong too if you get a point and still lose.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Do you know how many games have been played? Or low-scoring games. Like, there was this LSU game where I was so glad we got to 9 and they only got to 6. Or did they get to 9 and we got to 6? I don't know. It was depressing. I block out LSU games. Okay. Flip to the back. So, to describe a kind of... Okay, so... I almost said indiscreet again. Hot dog. Just failing overall today. What's the one acronym we've learned so far? We have learned Scrappy.
Cuss.
We have learned cuss. You don't have to remember the Frappy one. God, you've got to remember cuss. Okay. Today is the day for a new acronym. You are... I think you're a doof.
Dog.
I think it says doffs, but I'm going to say doofs.
Definitely not you.
It looks like doffs, but I don't want to say doffs.
It definitely does not say doofs.
You may say doffs. That's what you want,
Sounds
doffs.
like an insult.
Dogs.
Doffs.
Dogs or dudes?
How about the definition of sexuality? We just go
Maybe it's
Oh, I like it. You just do. I like it. Okay, so do. Okay, and so I'm kind of mad at these notes because
quit looking at
if we're actually reading the notes, they've left out the letter. So back to these, I'm like y'all. I just take things from people, and sometimes I have to ask forgiveness later. So the S is for strength, the F is for form, the D is for direction. Any guesses on what the O is for? I guess they felt it was so obvious they didn't need to label it.
obvious.
Outlier.
O is for outliers. Always in life. O is for outliers.
Well,
Misha listed it first.
Yes.
I remember the point system.
I forgot to give you points today, but her group is strong on points.
What are you talking about?
Who did? You forgot to
Mackenzie.
do points like the last 19 times.
Let's see. We'll say group 2.
Yeah, the points are kind of yucky.
Are you serious? I've just been giving y'all straight perfect scores on the points while you haven't been here.
The points are kind of yucky. I don't know.
Every time I forget to give points, I just give you all a straight 5 out of 5. It's been just
Keep it.
stupid grade boosters, to be honest.
What do they
Great.
Yeah, but that's what my grade
Yeah.
is.
Just
Literally, how's it bringing your grade down? You're getting a perfect score.
Listen here.
When? Because my test comes up.
How could it be bringing your grade down?
Well, if you had above
Well,
100,
if you had
you'd bring it down. but I
You
don't
have
have that.
above
No.
100.
You don't have no one has over 100.
Listen,
I think you're
I was
extremely high.
I was just
Oh.
kidding.
Oh.
Whoa.
No, I mean, do you have over? I don't think anyone has over 100.
No, no one doesn't. No one can because that first test. Or this is-
I mean, I think you're the highest. Actually, I don't even want to say that. There's someone else who's also as high as you are.
Well, I don't-
And it's not who you think it is.
Who do you think it is?
It's not, it's not,
If it's anybody, I bet it'd be.
no, it's not.
He's not taking this class.
Wait, what about Jackson?
He took it 2 years
Who
ago.
is it? Wait, what?
I think Viator's grade's really high.
Yeah, because Viator's a genius.
I'm pretty sure. She does all the things, and if you color this, you'll get bonus, she colors it. If you say do that, if you said lick the floor for bonus, she'd lick the floor for bonus. Y'all wouldn't see her do it, she'd do it quietly and discreetly, but she would do it.
No, Sally is screaming.
Tran.
This is the
She called you
Yeah.
Gilmore.
It is. Okay, listen, we got way off. We come back to this tomorrow. If you wanted to read this, that would be useful. We'll come back to that tomorrow. I want to remind you, you have this thing called a book and these problems suggested from it. Yeah, it's a book. And these problems suggested from it, you could go ahead and do the 5 from this section tonight instead of having to be that person doing all the chapter 3 homework the night before the chapter 3 test.
I sing it every time I
No one wants this.